The Ultimate Fighter Revival. We're going to have our bantamweight finale coming up this weekend. Team Ortega versus Team Volkanovski. Well, Matt, it's really Team Volkanovski versus Team Volkanovski versus Team Volkanovski versus Team Volkanovski. And Matt, the first of those matchups, this one is at bantamweight. We have the former Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series alum, Ricky Turcios. He was the 5th overall pick on the team of Volkanovski for this. Matt, who are some top 5 picks that you can think of in the NBA that have made giant marks of all time on the sport? You got any?
Sure, easy. Michael Jordan, number 3, greatest player of all time. Hakeem Olajuwon was drafted number 1 overall. Sam Bowie, 2nd overall,
Matt?
One of the GOATs.
None
Anthony
of that matters.
Bennett.
I asked for 5th overall picks. The best 5th overall picks of all time.
Carmelo
Trae
Anthony
Young,
was 5th.
Trae Young, Boogie, Ricky Rubio, Vince Carter, Charles Barkley, Matt. Brady Hiestand was picked 7th overall on the season. Your top 7th overall picks: Jamall Murray, Toronto Raptors legend Damon Stoudemire, and Steph Curry. Matt, Steph Curry, Ricky Turcios representing Gracie Baja, the Woodlands. That's Alex Morono's gym. This is Houston's own fighter. And listen, Houston has been on fire lately with fighters. I know Derek Lewis couldn't get it done against Cyril Gahn, but listen, I'm not going to slight him for that one. Ricky Turcios has also trained at Team Alpha Male in the past. And he's a really fun fighter because if you look at it on the season of The Ultimate Fighter, he was able to get wins over Mitch Raposo as well as Sholinyan. That was a huge win too. I mean, that was one of those guys that was kind of like a dark horse to win the entire season. And if you looked at it for Turcios, he's just able to win in almost every single exchange. He's good at striking. He's good with his grappling. Sometimes he expends himself a little bit too early, but then he picks himself back up with like a second win closer to the end of the fight. So he's a really fun guy to watch there. He was on the first episode of the first season of Dana White's Contender Series. He lost the decision to Boston Solomon. His other loss as a pro was in 2018 for the Fury FC Championship against Manny Martinez. It's also on this card, so that's a lot of fun. I think Ricky Turcios is a really, really good prospect. I think he's kind of bridging on that. You're not a prospect anymore. So it's going to be interesting to see how he makes out because Brady Hiestand is a prospect. He's 22 years old. He represents Sick Jitsu from up in the Pacific Northwest. I know Michael Case is going to have a lot of great things to say about him. Sam Cecilia as well. But this is a guy that, like, I looked at him coming into the season and his wins, like as a pro, had a combined win total of 1-24. So it's not like he fought good guys. And the one good guy that he fought was a really good fighter. But it was really weird there. And so he comes in and you're like, okay, he's young. He's kind of green. He's got a lot of power. But then every single negative thing that I could pick on for Brady Hiestand went away. Josh Reddinghouse is a really good fighter. You want to see good Josh Reddinghouse fights? Go out there. You're going to have to pay for them. They're going to be with Fight TV. But when he fights Sergey Morozov, like Josh Reddinghouse was that ringer of an American that goes over to Russia and they're like, he's the American shoe. And he has some really good fights. Like that's a big win. And then to beat Vince Murdoch that was supposed to be in the UFC and finish him by TKO. Now I know Murdoch had a knee injury. And if you look at it, Brady Hiestand said himself in an interview with Charlie Arnold with ESPN that he had his own meniscus and LCL tear. It's going to be interesting to see how Hiestand overall comes back from the injury. I'm sure it was a while ago. But man, this guy wiped away any doubts I had in him in those 2 performances on the show, and that normally doesn't happen for me.
Yeah, Brady Hiestand's a really, really good wrestler, and he's got great pressure too, along with the wrestling. He's not somebody who is just going to shoot from halfway across the cage over and over and over again. He's got intelligent pressure, like he fights like someone who is older than just 22 and has his own 6 fights. And here's the thing that I will say, and it's very similar to the last that we broke it, or I guess the one before Danny Rodriguez. A lot more fighters nowadays have more of an extensive amateur career than in the past, because a lot of the times guys would just have 7 fights in the regional scene, and that would kind of be their regional, or that would be their amateur experience, excuse me. But with guys like Brady Hiestand, they are having 5, 6, 7 fights before they do decide to turn pro, and all that is valuable experience. I know it was one of the first things I looked at too, was you just look at the combined record of his opponents, and it doesn't look all that great just on paper. But once you actually do the deep dive into all of his skills, I agree exactly with you. He kind of erases all the question marks you have for him in the cage while he is fighting. I do like the pressure a lot, and it will be interesting because with Turcios, he's going to have way more success in the open space. He is one of those all or nothing fighters to where he's not afraid to shoot for a head kick followed by like a flying elbow or something. This fight really reminds me a lot, and this is weird because I think it was the last Ultimate Fighter finale that I may have watched. This fight does kind of remind me of Mike Trezano versus Luis Pena, where Turcios is that Luis Pena. He needs his space. He has good jiu-jitsu, good submissions, but he can be held down if Hiestand's able to get on top. And I really feel like this fight comes down to really that simple equation. If Brady's able to get that first takedown, it's really going to tell you the story for the whole entire fight, because I do think that his top pressure is at least consistent enough so that the judge won't immediately stand them up. And I don't know if Turcios will be able to get up off of his back. It will be interesting because if you look at Ricky's Instagram, all he does is train jiu-jitsu by the looks of it, constantly in the gi, which is something that you really like in a matchup like this against such a high-level wrestler. But I do kind of agree with you. Hadouken is almost not even a prospect at this point. He has 12 fights, and they've all been against a pretty steady level of competition. So I almost look at this fight as like a guy who should be having like his UFC debut, maybe a co-main event on a Tuesday Night Contenders against a true legitimate Ultimate Fighter guy. And listen, I could swallow all these words. Maybe Brady Hiestand goes out there like Khabib Nurmagomedov, ankle picks Ricky and just beats the brakes off him. But I really look at Turcios as a guy who has all the experience in the world, but he can do more with less. And what I mean by saying that is when they aren't doing anything in open space, he'll be the one constantly jabbing. He'll be the one putting combinations together. He'll be the one more likely to win the moments where neither guy's really having any major success. And for that reason, I kind of have to pick him to win this season of The Ultimate Fighter.
So if we go over to the comment section, this fight, again, this one is legitness. And if you look at your middleweight finale, it's kind of weird and thrown together. But over in the comment section, threw it out there on YouTube, said tough finale at 135 LBS. Who's getting the contract and the crown at UFC Vegas 35? Bread. How's it going, Brad? Said Brady has UFC caliber athleticism, but he's a bit green still, so I got Ricky. Both guys are savages, though. Drew Cliff 82 said, I got Ricky here for sure, but Brady surprised me in the semis. I picked him to beat his teammate in the first fight on the show, but I thought Murdoch would beat him. Who knows how much the knee injury factored into it, though. I was really looking forward to Trayshawn Gore facing Brian Battle, so on and so forth. Wyatt Kenny saying, going with Ricky to get the win. Also, Brady's first loss came to my coach, Chad Anheliger. I apologize to our Canadian brother there, Chad, because I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm sorry. But he's going to be fighting on Contender Series in September, so watch for him. And Matt, let's throw another one out there. William Recanatini, I apologize to you too, William, because I see you on Twitter all the time, but you can't bet against Ricky. This guy's a brawler. Matt, normally I'm pretty good with names. I study them. I do my best. But overall, you look at the odds for this one. Turcios open to minus 170, is minus 167 right now. Hiestand, same thing. The odds have kind of moved around by a couple of points. And if you go over to the Tapology votes for this one, and I'm going to bring them up right now, holy smokes, 872 total votes, 83% Turcios, 76% by decision for the 17% that have Hiestand, 58% by decision. I think Turcios is going to get the win here, and I think he's going to get it by decision too.
This thing about Turcios, he's kind of like Doug McDermott in college. You know? Like Doug McDermott was a senior by the time he went to the NBA.
Like Jimmer Fredette.
Not like Jimmer Fredette, because the difference is that I forget who I was even talking about. Okay, Jimmer Fredette's
Dougie
fine. Dougie McBuckets. There we go. The thing about Doug McDermott was that in college, he might have been way better than a lot of first-year guys, but it's only because he had those 3 extra years to develop. That's kind of thing with Turcios. Yes, he's having his UFC debut, but he's had a lot more time to really develop his skill set outside of the UFC before he kind of made his way over here. It's very reminiscent of, and people aren't going to like this because he's near the top of the division, Yuri Prochazka. He was like, hey, I'm not just coming to the UFC to fight 7 unranked guys before I get my way into the rankings. I'm going to make a name for myself, and when I'm ready to come to the UFC, it is off to the races. I want the Volkan Oezdemirs. I want the Dominic Reyes. Like, I want those top-level guys. Turcios is like, hey, I'm kind of cool with developing my skill set outside the UFC before I come over. So although Hiestand might be able to have a higher ceiling in the future, because he is only 22. That's the thing that we do have to remember. He might lose this fight and could get re-signed in 2 years. That's the other thing. He's a very, very young prospect, and that's something we do have to remember. But again, I do like Turcios in this one.
Matt, it's an absolutely great fight. We have your next Ultimate Fighter winner at bantamweight to be Ricky Turcios, but it very well could be Brady Hiestand as well. Both very highly touted prospects. I want to hear from everybody. Did you watch the Ultimate Fighter? What did you like most about the season? Are we on with some of these? Did somebody let the dogs out at the hotel that I'm staying at? Maybe. They're barking profusely. But Matt, I absolutely love this fight. You're not going to want to miss the breakdown of the middleweight finale and that main event at 145 pounds. You've got Barboza taking on Chikadze. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. And as we always say, let's get into it.